Baldor's last walk. Baldor was no longer the man he had been. His face was a mask of scars, each one telling a story of a life lived in battle, in fire, in pain. His body, though still powerful and capable of crushing a man's skull with a single blow, was wrapped in the quiet of old age, like a blade that had been dulled with too much use. The rage that once roiled inside him, a fire that had driven him through countless battles, now lay dormant, replaced by something far deeper, an empty calm. He sat on a rock by the edge of a dark, swirling river, the surface of which seemed to pulse with an unnatural energy. He had reached the border between life and the underworld. The thick stench of sulfur burned his nostrils, but it did little to stir him. He had been on the road for months, following a trail that had led him through hell itself. Baldor reached into the sack that hung from his belt. Inside, nestled carefully, were the fingers of his companions, once great warriors who had shared his adventures, his battles, his life. Now they were all that remained of them. He had taken their fingers as a grim memento after he had burned their bodies, their once strong forms now reduced to ash, scattered to the winds as the last act of their warrior's journey. He had used his mortar and pestle to grind their bones to dust, each fragment of their being added to the earth, the sky, and the fires of the world. The last remaining pieces of their mortal form were these fingers, the largest part of them left. He could feel the weight of them, their presence. Small as they were, they seemed to thrum with the echoes of his lost comrades. The journey had been long, and the path had not been kind. The hells were not a place for mortals, not even the kind of mortal who had walked through the world with fire in his heart. Baldor's body was bruised and scarred from countless creatures he had battled. Demons, devils, and worse. All of them had sought to stop him, but he had pressed on, guided only by his promise. He had been the last one standing. His companions had died one by one, each of them struck down by forces beyond their control. Baldor had taken their deaths as a burden, a weight he would carry alone. But he had made a vow to go to the depths of the hells and reclaim their souls. He stood up, letting the bag of fingers hang loosely at his side, and stared into the fire that burned in the distance. It was not the hellish fires that surrounded him, but something else, a faint flickering memory of the flame that once burned inside him, bright and furious. Now there was nothing left of that fire. He had turned it all into something else, something calm, something he could control. He did not know what drove him anymore. Perhaps it was the promise he had made to his friends, or perhaps it was the emptiness of their loss. Either way, he had come to the place where souls went to be lost, and he would take them back. With grim determination, Baldor began the final leg of his journey. The gates of hell loomed ahead, jagged and black, stretching up into a sky that swirled with dark clouds. The air was thick with the wails of damned souls, their tortured cries reverberating in the distance. But Baldor's steps were steady. There was no hesitation now, no doubt. He had no fear. The rage that had once consumed him, fueling his every action, every swing of his sword and axe, every battle, was gone. In its place was an eerie calm, a focus born of years of fighting and surviving even when there was no reason left to. The rage had been burned away by the fires of the world, replaced with the certainty of his purpose. He had come to do what was impossible. He had come to reclaim his comrades' souls. The gates opened before him, as if they recognized his presence, and he entered the hellish landscape. The ground beneath his feet trembled, as if the very earth could sense his resolve. Demons and spirits flitted in and out of sight, their forms shifting like shadows, but none of them dared approach him. They could feel the aura around him, the calm fury that had replaced his rage. He journeyed deeper into the underworld, followed the twisted, endless paths that seemed to lead nowhere. Hours passed, or perhaps days. Time lost all meaning here. But Baldor did not stop. He knew where he was going. He could feel their souls pulling at him, faint whispers on the wind, their voices lost in the wailing storm of the damned souls around him. At last he arrived. The cavernous chamber was dark, its vast walls lined with flickering torches that cast strange shifting shadows. In the center stood a pedestal, and upon it swirling, twisting vortex of light, a portal to the souls of the damned. Baldor approached, his hand reaching into the bag at his side. He pulled out the first finger, Grimm's, the warrior who had fought at his side for decades. The finger was cold, its once strong, calloused skin now pale and stiff. He could still remember Grimm's laugh, his strength, the way his axe cleaved through enemies like hot knife through butter. The ring of regeneration, a relic from a forgotten age, was placed carefully on the finger. It glowed faintly, as though it recognized its purpose. Baldor whispered the words of an ancient ritual, his voice steady, unwavering. The words were not his own. He had learned them from a forgotten scroll in a temple of forgotten gods. His eyes burned with intensity as the ritual took hold, and the vortex before him swirled faster. He could feel the souls of his companions swirling the void. He could sense their presence, their anger, their fear, their wanting, their desire. But he held his ground. He had promised them this. He would not fail. With the last words of the incantation, a surge of energy erupted from the ring. The soul of Grimm, his oldest friend, began to return. Slowly at first, a flicker of light within the swirling darkness. Then, with a sudden burst, the soul entered the finger, and the ring began to glow brighter. The air crackled as the first sparks of new life began to form. Baldor held the ring aloft, waiting. He would not leave until they were all back. And when they returned, he would stand guard against the horrors of this place, as they had always done. He would protect them, even from the deepest hell. But first he waited, and in that stillness there was no rage, no fire, only the quiet resolve of a man who had learned to focus all his strength into the space between breaths. And he heard the cacklings coming down the halls. He heard the demon's screams, and he waited. There's still about 2.5 minutes on this video because this one took me about 7 hours and change to draw out, so the video is like around 9 minutes. Anyway, the way I did this one was I just built on shapes, and then I wanted to leave his hair kind of that cartoony way without like really doing any detail work on it, but I put a lot of detail into his scars and into the overall lighting, like, you know, the green of like what you would think of as the souls area, and the orange, of course, of the hells, and gave him just like some buddies. They're just hanging out with him. Anyway, I hope you guys like it. Tell me what you think. I thank you very much for making it this far into the video. I know TikTok is not a place for 10-minute videos.